How you get so fly?
Hey guys, Michael Harris here, back with another video. And today I thought, since I had to delete the last master game analysis, which was about polymorphy, decided to make another one today. And I just need to make a few more videos each day due to the, if you watch my last video about the complications I will incur in the next week. So today I thought we'd look at a game that was regarded to include the greatest move of all time. This is a game was played between Vesel and Topalov and Shirov. It's their fire on board, and this was played in 1998 at the Linares tournament. And we'll just jump into the game, and I'll commentate about the moves, and you'll try to let you guess the best move at the end. Well, the greatest move of all time, highly acclaimed, is what it's called. So here we go. D4, knight f6, and now c4. Now black can choose to go into maybe e6 with a Nimzo Indian ideas, or Queen's Indian if white responds with knight f3, or a g6 with either Gruenfeld ideas or King's Indian ideas. So this is very common. I believe knight f6 is more common than a more classical d5. So yeah, this is highly popular. So we have g6. So Alexei Shirov is looking for a King's Indian or a Gruenfeld, which are both aggressive and I believe to his taste and style. So knight c3, now d5, and now we enter Gruenfeld, which is, I think, is a very interesting opening. I've been studying it lately. The complications of it is quite massive. Learning the theory of it all is quite hard due to the endless analysis on various positions that occur in this opening. And this basically, this is about as hyper modern as it gets. I believe this is developed by Ernest Gruenfeld, and I believe in the early 1900s, I would just say. And basically, more ideas of just since Nimzovich, just controlling the center with your pieces and your pawns together, and it was less, I guess, it kind of disobeyed opening principles that were long sought throughout that time. So basically, the idea of the Gruenfeld is basically the exchange of center. White gets a huge center, and basically this bishop, the dark square bishop, ends up going to g7, and then strikes with c5 at some point to break up white center, and tries to prove that it's weak due to the, I guess, all the pressure. It's just mainly just pressure and a flank opening. So this is c captures d5, and this is the more, I believe this is one of the most critical variations, the exchange variation, because white gets pretty massive center. So knight takes d5, e4. Of course, you just don't want to take on d5, then you're not getting a center that you want. Knight takes c3, b captures c3, bishop g7. Like I said, this bishop is kind of restricted right now due to this pawn chain here, but it'll strike with c5 trying to break it up, and it'll be very active against this good diagonal. So now bishop e5 check. This is not a very common move, I believe, because when studying this, I believe I mean, I haven't ran into it when analyzing this book I'm reading, but I haven't seen bishop e5 as a very common move. I mean, of course, it's probably viable. I think its intention is just to provoke c6, because normally you want to play c5. So basically, I think you're just maybe wasting a tempo. I don't think it's that big of a deal, though. And maybe brings the bishop all the way to b6 if the c6 is played. Maybe bishop a4 to b6. I mean b3. I'm sorry, but yeah, I believe this is just the main idea of it. And Shirov did play c6. So it ends up, I don't know, maybe bishop d7 is an interesting idea, because normally in the Gruenfeld, I usually want to exchange off the light squared bishops to get control of the c4 square, because usually this knight on the queen side goes there, because via usually well, knight c6 and knight a5 to c4, most variations of the Gruenfeld. So most of the time you want to exchange the black square bishop, better control the square, because sometimes it could just become very weak. So, I mean, we'll see this later in the game, but I think this was a try. I believe it's, when I checked the database, it's not very common. So, and white usually has a pretty good winning percentage in this line. So I'm not positive. So, we continue with the game. C6, bishop A4, and yeah, this bishop may appear on B3 where it's more active than just hitting C6. And now castle, knight E2. Now note that knight F3 is usually not considered very accurate. Of course, he's played C6, but you can maybe play C5 now, which, I mean, I don't think it's that much a waste of a tempo. Now bishop G4 is coming, pinning the knight, and you may have to spend tempo on H3. And generally, this is not favorable because you can sometimes get into endgames where it's hard to defend D4, especially if you waste the tempo on H3, because usually if I use a queen A5 and taking on D4 and knight C6, rook E8, there's sometimes where you can't. It's pretty hard to defend a pawn, because we can imagine that, say knight C3 here, bishop here, queen A5 here, take. Look. Now, see, this pawn is under tremendous pressure, and there's no way you can defend it. You either have to basically lose your central control with D5, which is almost always not favorable, or just give up the bishop. And now black has the bishop here, and although his structure is quite compromised, I don't think it's a huge deficit, and you could look for very active play, which I mean, it's probably a fairly equal position. This C6 pawn is pretty weak, but you can see that. It's definitely a position. So we'll go back to the game. So knight E2, yeah, this is pretty much considered the best move in many just Gruenfeld variations, just of winning bishop G4. The idea of just pressurizing a piece that's defended D4 square. And Shirov plays knight D7. And C5 is still an idea. He could have played it. I believe it could be the most common move in this position, if I remember correctly. It's the same idea of the regular Gruenfeld, but this bishop's on A4. I don't know how different is that than the bishop being on C4, because this is what happens in most Gruenfeld variations involving C5 in one tempo. So yeah, he could have gone for C5, but in this game he goes for the E5 break, which I think is pretty interesting. And C6 restrains if he responds with E5, responding with D5, which usually gets some sort of initiative. So he went for E5 in this game. So castle, now E5, and obviously black needs to activate his pieces at some point. Otherwise, white just has the center and nothing's really going on for black. So we have F3, and looking at this game, I didn't really understand this move. The only idea that I could really see in it is maybe skewering the bishop on E3 if ever the knight comes to F6, knight G4 ideas, but that seems a bit far-fetched to me, because the knight usually once again goes to C4 and try to exchange these light square bishops off, which does happen in the game. So I don't quite like F3. It's a bit passive too, because usually in the Gruenfeld, black tries to mobilize his queenside majority as quickly as possible, and it usually becomes a force to reckon with pretty quickly. And white usually tries to go with all-out attack with F4, F5, and attacking this pawn triangle here. So F3, I think and you'll see later in the game, it's really just a waste of a tempo. And I think that becomes really critical when black starts getting his counterplay on the queen side. So it's just F3 is very suspicious. So let's continue with the game. Queen E7, which, just developing queen may bring the rook to D8. Maybe could transfer into queen side at some point. Okay, then bishop E3, sorry. And Now rook d8, like I was prefacing. Now it's just putting more pressure on the d4 square. And now you don't never want to play c5 because, I mean, white can comfortably respond with d5 and the protected pass pawn. It's monumental. So, and I've noticed in this game, throughout this progression of the game, this bishop's a bit suspicious. Which kind of maybe the drawback, because this bishop b5 check, what I mentioned earlier, is not played very often, I believe. Maybe 100 times, which is not a lot. So I think this bishop is a bit offsides, because you have to spend an extra tempo to get it active and make sure playing bishop b3. And that does happen, but I think it's a bit slow. And combined with Topalov playing f3, it's a bit weird. So anyway, we're going to continue. Queen c2, which is just getting off the file that the rook is on, just avoiding tactical possibilities. So knight b6, and we see this knight coming to c4, and this bishop simply being attacked. So bishop e3, the bishop is now active on the diagonal, and black just contests the diagonal, and looks at the c4 square, and now black doesn't necessarily want to take here and fix white's pawn structure, because also that's another characteristic of the Gruenfeld from the white perspective. Black usually has a pretty nice pawn structure in most variations. I mean, not all, but this isolated pawn soon becomes significant once the queens get traded off, because as you see, black's pawn structure is pretty intact. I mean, it's 2 pawn islands, but this one isolated pawn I think is pretty significant. So anyway, just mentioning that. So black's main idea is just once again the c4 square and hit this bishop, and also that may reveal more reason why f3 was played. Maybe they tuck the bishop in f2. So I still don't like f3 is due to it's just kind of slow. So anyway, rook a d1. I don't think I have any real problems with this move. So knight c4 as planned, and bishop c1. Okay, I'm not sure what the bishop's doing there, to be honest, because I mean, it can't really coming to the b2 diagonal. I mean, it's not active there due to the knight being on c4, and you can never. It's hard to play c4 yourself and activate that bishop if it was on b2. And I think this knight's just dominating this good bishop. So yeah. When I was saying the f3 move could have been useful here, playing here, but once again, this kind of blocks your active play down f-file if you ever want to play f4, because you rather not your rook on f1 being shielded. So it was very it's very suspicious. I think bishop c1. Bishop f2 may have been a better try. Maybe reroute the bishop to the king side some way, putting pressure on e5. So, I mean, yeah. Bishop c1, I think the bishop's just truly passive there. And now it's hard to exchange the dark square bishops off, because you never play get a battery going down the h6 and c1 diagonal. So, yeah, I think this just dominated. So b5, once again, mobilizing this majority, which soon will become a pass pawn, and it'll be very outside pass pawn at that, a very valuable pass pawn. So, and now we see white kind of struggling for counterplay, and black's counterplay is coming quite fast. So white needs to get something going before he gets strangled. So f4. Once again, I was saying f3 kind of just wasted tempo. So now we see f4. Then he captures d4, and you normally don't want it if you take like this, say, just for instance. The first thing we notice is this bishop's not going to be good anytime soon because of this pawn structure here. It's just blanking the bishop. So that's why Shirov played e captures d4 rather instead. I mean, so we have knight takes d4, and now I think the position becomes quite critical now. So he's hitting the c6 pawn, And I don't think you want to play a move like bishop d7, because then, I mean, I can just take this knight, and I mean, the double pawns on the c file aren't extremely weak due to them not being on open file, but they are pretty weak. So, bishop g4 hitting this rook with tempo is a very useful move. And he played a rook d e1. So if you take now, you can imagine, just check. So this is an in-between move. Simply, and maybe I should go back real quick. I want to just, because I was thinking about that, this c captures d4. And I think white center is a bit loose, because maybe moves like, because I was wondering about this when looking at this game previously, whether, I mean, it's hard to get in d5. If white could get in d5 really quickly, then yes, this pawn center would be very dangerous. I'm trying to look for ways though. Maybe f5, stopping f5 from white. So, or just a4. I think f5 is more accurate though. So f5, maybe here. Yeah, surely. And yeah, I think, and now you have weak light squares. Maybe you can reroute the knight. Yeah, reroute the knight via b6 to d5, and it's a monster there. So yeah. Okay, I was just looking at that line. I was wondering while I was just talking about the game. Sorry about that. For the just going off topic real quick. So, like I said, we have rook d e1. Now we have queen c5 pinning the knight. Now this knight is threatened. And this knight was hanging. Oh yeah. Okay. There are some ideas in regard to, let's say, I think it's pretty dangerous. So it just takes here. Takes. Sorry. Maybe this is more accurate. Instead of, well, sorry. Bishop takes d4 check. C captures d4, rook takes d4. And, although, I mean, black's upon him, of course. This is pretty dangerous now. Now these bishops are become really dangerous. And you see this dark square bishop is going to come to life pretty fast. And I personally wouldn't like this position. This bishop looks offsides. And, I mean, I would say this is almost, I would want to say winning, but this is pretty tough for black here. There's a little source for counterplay. I mean, you could play a5, things like that, but I can just play a4 or something. And this bishop pair is such an asset in this position. I'm down a pawn, but I think in any position, if the material advantage is not evident, as in it's not materializing in the position, and then it really doesn't matter. And I don't see it doesn't really matter. The c6, I guess, let's say the c6 pawns don't really do anything. So I mean, I think white just has a very good initiative, and I think it should be close. Very nice advantage. I would say a pawn advantage. I think it would be pretty hard for black to defend. So I believe that's why he did not take. Queen c5 is a more calm move, and it's still, I think now has better circumstances to take the pawn, because now you're taking a check. So now king h1, it could still be dangerous the more I think about it. Yeah. And why fool with that when you have this pawn majority? So he just continues a5. Then h3, just kicking the bishop, because this bishop's really interfering from any rook going to this open file. So it's just being annoying. So bishop d7, which the bishop could be placed on e8 to stop blocking this rook. So a4, and this is just a misstep by Topalov, because after b takes a4, bishop a2. He did not take on a4 because I was wondering why I wouldn't analyze the game, but this looks pretty strong. Knight b6, and saving the bishop is not really it's not really viable because, let's say here, now a4 is coming, and that pawn is really fast, and it's very scary. And I mean, you can win your pawn back. Black's not really worried about that. And this pass pawn is going to hinder all of White's counterplay. This outside pass pawn, and all of White's pieces are over here, and he can exchange queens. It's too much. Oh yeah, sorry, and he can't even move his bishop because the pin. So yeah, it's a5. So I'm not sure why he played a4. I mean, it's Topalov. I don't understand that. I guess you're just saying knight b6. Knight b6 is a pretty calm move, kind of hard to see, I guess. So bishop a2. Now White's just down a pawn, and I mean, these double pawns aren't that great, so it's probably not that big of a deal. I wouldn't give like a massive advantage because these pawns are weak. I don't think they'll last very long. Yeah, say he can just pick it up now after bishop e8. So, but he strives for active play with e5, and this does block this bishop, which was exerting some pressure on the position. And now I believe Topalov is going to look for moves like f5 and try to really get at Black's king, because at some point we can imagine a rook coming to b8 and kind of attacking this weak c3 pawn, which is a target in the position. But moves like knight a3 and try to basically just win on the queen side before White can win on the king side, that is. So e5. Now he does defend the pawn with knight b6. Now f5. Really going for it. Sacking this pawn here. But Shirov plays just the calm knight d5. Now this knight is very centralized, and you don't necessarily want to give up this bishop, because I think this is one of your main assets. Exerting pressure on the f7 square. Let's imagine ever f takes g6 occurred. So, very calm move. I think taking the pawn's very... Well, yeah, it's probably just losing. Not losing. Well, yeah. This shot. Once again, this bishop showing its dominance on this a8 a2 diagonal. So, anyway, knight d5, very nice move. It also takes the c3 pawn, bishop d2, and we can see this bishop is suffering once again. It's being dominated by the activity of this knight. So I think that's a major theme of this whole game. This knight dominating this bishop, because typically in these positions, this is supposed to be White's better bishop, and it hasn't been evident throughout this whole game. And that could have been the reason to White's downfall. So we'll continue with the game. Knight b4. Now this just aims to exchange queens. Now I don't know if this is the best objectively, because these pawns are great. They're outside pass pawns, but they're double outside pass pawns, double isolated to be exact. And I mean, I don't think the endgame is really super clear, but I mean, I think White has a more risk of losing than Black does. But I don't know if this. I'm not saying it's definitely. I'm definitely not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it's maybe not the best choice in terms of practicality, because I don't know. In the end of it, it doesn't seem. But White does not take it anyway. So Queen takes a4. Now I don't know if this is the best decision. I would look into this endgame. Really. Oh, sorry. But he takes. Because I was wondering about this, and this endgame could be very well. This endgame is maybe. This is very strong. Yeah, that endgame is pretty bad. Never mind. Okay, that totally makes sense not to take it, but that's a very nice move. Therefore, knight b4, very nice move. Very deep. Well, not very deep, but I think that rook takes c2 idea, if he had that in mind, is very strong. So anyway, we'll continue with the game. So now we have queen takes a4. Now knight takes a2, and now we see eliminating of this very strong bishop. So I think black is just in the driver's seat for this for now, because of now white really has a fractured pawn structure, but black does as well. But white's a bit overextended for the circumstances that are present. There's not really going to be an attack. I don't see, because these light squares are very weak. And we can imagine just a queen central on d5, for example, and I don't see many problems occurring because due to the lack of control of critical squares in the center, and I think black's coordination is going to be quite nice in a few moves. So queen takes a2. Now he just picks up the pawn because it's a pawn. A pawn is a pawn. So bishop takes e5. F takes g6. H takes g6. Now bishop g5, and he's just trying to kick this rook out this open file. So, but he doesn't. This is a very odd, but it's a well centralized rook, and it controls the fifth rank. And you maybe have ideas of taking here and exposing this loose bishop. So bishop g5 could have been inaccurate. So rook d5, rook e3. Now, of course, he could win a pawn. But the endgame is not as clear because, let's say, it takes here. Let's just say, you can't take the rook because the. But this endgame, it's not clear due to opposite color bishops. It does occur in the game later. Opposite color bishops occur, but I mean, maybe this position I think is still winnable for black, because opposite color bishops don't necessarily mean that's going to be a draw every time. But it is a bit less clear. Well, it could be dangerous, to be honest, because moves like there's a lot of pressure going down this f7 square, and there's a control of the dark squares, and the king is a bit weak. I'd be a bit wary of it. So practically, I don't know. I think Shirov was right not taking the pawn. I mean, so queen d6, and I believe this is maybe looking at probably I guess just centralizing his pieces. Queen was quite awkward on. Well, he's setting up this. Sorry, he's just setting up bishop takes d4, exposing this piece because it's loose. So queen there. Yeah, queen g2. Sorry, queen there. That was very descriptive. Queen e2, and this just x-rays the bishop. So, and now, I mean, of course, taking here is probably out of the question. Let's just examine the line real quick. I'm almost positive it's out of the question. Here, take, here. Oh, yeah, it is definitely out of the question. And now I mean, it's not super clear how you're going to break through it. I mean, who wants this position? I mean, yeah, I think this is a draw. I mean, at least. Whoa. No. Guys, we should ignore what I'm saying. Why can't I do that? Oh, it's my move. Oh, sorry. Guys, just stay with me. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, like I said, queen e2 just x-rays the bishop, and white's gonna just get a good game after that because due to the aggressive play. I mean, I think at most is a draw, and I don't think after Shirov playing this pretty well played game, he does not want to draw. So bishop d7. Now the bishop is becoming more active. Could come to e6, and he doesn't mind if the strong knight gets traded for this bad bishop. It's getting hindered by these pawns. c4. That's a very nice move. Huh. Bishop takes. Rook takes. Yeah, he just aimed to exchange pieces with that move. That's a very nice resource that Topalov found. That is, I'm sorry. So, I mean, let's just say he takes with the rook. Just takes. just takes here. And then once again, this is a very dangerous position for black due to the absence of the dark square bishop. And just king's just exposed, and like moves like bishop f6 are coming. And like simple plans such as, I don't know, maybe queen e1 to queen h4 with the bishop being on f6. It's just dangerous. So very nice resource found by Topalov with c4. So now we exchange pieces. Last exchanges now. Rook e8. And this position has definitely settled down. Of course, I think black's gonna be 2 pawns up. So, and in these opposite color bishop endings, if all the bishops were traded off, let's say this, it quite I guess static, not like dynamic. Outside pass pawns, 2 pawns isn't enough, unless the pawns are past 6th rank or 3rd rank, due to, I mean, y'all can look that up yourselves. But yeah, a opposite color bishop ending is drawn even at 2 pawns down. But I think the factor of these being the C pawn and the A pawn being split and their pass pawns, I mean, of course their 2 queening squares are dark squares, but white's king is very far from action, and black's king is going to be maybe just 1 tempo faster, and that could decide the game. So here we go. Bishop h6. And once again, so I should have mentioned this, but black's position is very dangerous because that's a dark square bishop, which I mentioned in the previous lines when black exchanges dark square bishop for the knight on d4. Yeah, but once again, there are some troubles. So he brings the rook to e5, and yeah, maybe more dry was queen e5. I don't think Shirov really is interested in a draw, because I mean, this position. Now I would say this position's drawn. This outside pass pawn may be great, but I don't see it really occurring, because imagine bishop. I don't know. I don't see it happening really. Could still be good, but once again, I don't think the queens. Now, if the queens are left on, I think it's a bit more ambitious. So. Now we have rook f3. Now the rook could be swinging to g3, or just, or simply trying to get active on one of the files, because it cannot get active via d1 or e1 due to black controlling these files. Now he has support from the queen to enter on either of these squares. So now we queen c5. Maybe that was prophylaxis against rook d3, but he does offer exchange of queens. Queen a1, and Topalov wants to keep the pressure on this g7 square indirectly, and this rook simply cannot move. Okay, now we have bishop f5. Now rook e3, and now f6. Now this kind of relieves the pressure on the position, but it does saddle black with an even more crazy pawn structure if white intends to do so. So he does take, queen takes, queen a2 check. Let me look at this real quick, because I found this very interesting looking at the game previously. Now these are all isolated pawns, and I don't know if I would consider them weak. I would consider them more of an asset, because they're all there's 3 pass pawns. They're all isolated, but I don't know. It's opposite color bishop ending. I would recommend studying, because I mean, this is about as unique as it gets, because even though it's an opposite color bishop ending, these pass pawns, I believe, once you have 2 pass pawns or more in opposite color bishop endings, I think it's pretty significant that whoever has those pass pawns could very well just be winning, because this bishop alone cannot handle 3 pass pawns, and the kings have to be involved in more restraint at some point. You can imagine the bishop guarding one of the pass pawns, and now black's king can just get active and probably just win the game. So Topalov was not interested in that. So queen a2 check. No, I mean, this queen trade is not as bad, because once again, you're not. I mean, it sounds weird to forcibly isolate your pawns, and I think that brings up a good point. I think it's important to have general principles in mind when playing chess, but I've noticed over time, because I noticed this in my play, and it's a problem I have, is that you need to learn how to critically analyze along with knowing those general principles. You can know something very well. Let's say, like these isolated pawns, and let's say you did not go for that move that Shirov played, which is f6. If you critically analyze this ending, say with with queen takes e5 and then rook takes e5, and you start to notice that these isolated pawns are actually an asset rather than a weakness due to the nature of the position. Like I mentioned before, if you just say that I don't think white's dark square bishop queen, it can restrain most at two pawns. Let's say the C and A pawn, but it's going to be hard to stop the E pawn too. I mean, they're all in dark squares, but it's just way too much. And white's king will soon be restrained. So I think that's an important principle, is that even though keep general principles in the back of your mind, but at the same time always analyze the position to its fullest, no matter what you think, because I think that's what greatly defines a really, really good player and an amateur player, is that they know general principles, but they can morph them to, I guess they understand them more than anyway that they can break. It's like you know rules, but you can break them to your benefit. So I think that's when you have a greater understanding of chess, and something I need to look through in my play, because basically you're just playing superficially if you just abide to opening principles and things of that nature. So sorry, just to note that I thought it was important. So queen a2 check, queen d5. Now this ending may not be as bad, but now we notice this queen square for this d pawn is on a light square. So and this pawn, so imagine the bishop having to be on c3 to stop both these pawns from getting any farther. So we have bishop d2, pawn a4. Basically, he's just trying to provoke this pawn to be on a light square so it can be blockaded later. So, like I preface, the bishop on c3, that's the ideal square for the bishop, where it can stop this pawn getting to, well, in this case, d4, and this pawn from reaching a1 where it would queen. So king f2, getting the king after a4, and now I'll give you guys some time to guess the greatest move of all, the acclaimed greatest move of all time, or the most unexpected move of all time. I'll give you 5 seconds to pause your video. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this move is, I doubt any of you all know this move. I mean, no, not know this move, but figured it out if you've never seen this game before. Because, I mean, I don't know who even considers that move in the realm of thought. But, I mean, it would be a move I would just look at and be like, no. It looks, I think you have to have so much confidence to play this move. I would love to see Topalov's face after Shirov played this move, because, I mean, I hope you're all ready, because, oh, not yet. It's not yet. But after this, I give you 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is the position. Sorry, I thought the position was there, but this is the move, the greatest move of all time. Bishop h3. I don't know, quadruple X clam. Now, I don't understand this move. Hopefully someone that is viewing this video knows the point of this move. I don't understand it. I mean, unless Shirov calculated all of it, I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I have no clue. Bishop h3. I don't understand it, because there's so many possibilities for white to play. He doesn't necessarily have to take the bishop. I mean, if you're looking at the move, there's so much to calculate. I don't know how you do it. I mean, Shirov he's a great player. I guess this is just eliminating the possibility of white having a pass pawn. That's the only understanding I have of this, because if white ever takes on h3, he has no longer the possibility of having a pass pawn. Actually, this is interesting. Now, after Topalov did take this piece, which I don't think probably not the best move after looking at the game result. But yeah, I think he should have been more aware. I mean, I'm sure he did not just instantly take the piece, because I mean, you're playing what, Shirov in 1998 was he a top 10 player? Maybe. I think so. Yeah, so I don't think top 10 players do drop pieces, but I don't, in this simplified position, I don't think so. So I mean, he miscalculated. So I mean, he took it, and now I'm starting to understand it. The more I talk about it, and what I prefaced before, there is three passed pawns in this position for black, and it is pretty hard for a bishop to stop three passed pawns, and you can already see that black's king is already more active than white's king. So, I mean, and I think, well, black could lose this position, but I don't think he's ever going to lose this position, because maybe that's why he played that. He thought he was probably playing for tricks, maybe, possibly, and he realized that the rising position is pretty hard to lose this position, I think. I mean, this bishop is on the right color to say he ever eliminates and gets a pass pawn on the H file, but the three isolated pass pawns should suffocate white's counterplay. But we're going to continue with the game. It's a very weird game. King H5, King F5, King F2, King E4. Now you see this king is immensely active. And Topalov just takes the pawn. And I don't know if this was a good move, because now you see this bishop being removed from its ideal square on c3, where it could stop both of these pawns. And I think the king can contain the passed f pawn, but this could have been a blunder. I haven't checked this game with an engine necessarily, because I didn't want to ruin the beauty of the game and say bishop h3 was a terrible move. So, and engines are no fun, like I said. So bishop takes f6. So I think, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to assess, because, I mean, this is just pure calculation. I mean, I could sit here for a while and just calculate on my own, because Topalov resigns in, I believe, one more move. So, yeah, you see this bishop being cut off from this ideal square, and now it's pretty hard, because this king is coming to c2, and that's pretty hard to stop, especially when you have to stop this pawn too, because bishop e7, I believe, is forced, because a6 is coming really fast, and you can know pawn, and the only diagonal to stop that pawn is the h8, a1 diagonal, and it's just been blocked off. So, I mean, so what was played? Bishop e7, now king d3, and I believe this is, did not resign yet? According to the site that got this game, he did resign. But, I mean, this is resignable, like I said, because this, what I purposed before, this is the ideal square for the bishop. And if that post cannot be maintained, then I think just white's losing. So, and this king's coming to c2, and this d-pawn's rolling, and this king can't do anything can't do anything about it. And if the bishop ever comes to the a5 e1 diagonal, you have to worry about this a pawn, because there could be deflection tactics, and once again, this h8 a1 diagonal is the only way to stop this a pawn. So in the game that I looked at, the website I got it off, Chess Games, but it said Topalov resigned here, but he continued on bishop c5, and I'm not sure what that move does. So it just plays king c4, bishop e7, king b3, and now he resigned. And yeah, I mean, this position's pretty lost. I mean, he's not gonna push this pawn. Shirov next move, he's going to c2, because if he pushed the a pawn, then he just takes, and I think the king and pawn endgame's winning for white. So, I mean, this in-game is pretty logical because of the aspects I mentioned previously. We can push on for a move, I guess. I mean, this. So here, and like I said, I think bishop b5. I mean, check, and let's say king here, and you have that move. So yeah, the bishop can't hold everything. King has to help out. It's not. It's just too much. It's too much. So I hope you guys enjoyed that game, and hopefully you haven't seen that game before. I know Mato Jellic, if you know that YouTuber, very popular in regards to chess. He posted that game a pretty long time ago. Well, just the move itself, bishop h3. So, and I hope you enjoyed that game. Give it a thumbs up I enjoyed that game. I haven't seen that game in a long time, but I thought it'd be interesting because I'm currently studying the Gruenfeld, just looking at some notable Gruenfeld games. But hope you guys enjoyed that video, and thank you for watching. Okay, bye.